Just a young gun with a quick fuse. I was uptight, wanna let loose. I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind. Not a yes sir.
My name's Amanda and I worked at Plainfield South in a classroom called SCORE, which was 14 to 18-year-olds who had autism, Down syndrome, Angelman's disorder. We had some that have cognitive delays. We had one student that had traumatic brain injury, and then we also have other students with physical disabilities. In our classroom, we had some kids with sensory issues, and some things that we would do for them would be emptying out Play-Doh out from the Play-Doh container, and from there we would actually poke holes in the top and then put like tea in one, hand sanitizer in another, and flowers in another, and students could use those to sit on their desk. And if they were starting to get stressed out or anything like that, they'd be able to pick it up and smell it. We had a student in particular who actually liked to eat everything. It could be strings on his shirt, it could be his pen, it could be a pencil. So instead of when he would get ready to put something in his mouth, he would actually use the Play-Doh container and hold that to smell it instead of putting it in his mouth. We also allowed our students to wear headphones, the big kind that covered their entire ear if they felt like noise was too much after a while. We had fidget toys, and how the kids could use those anytime they needed. They'd have to work for 5 minutes, and then they would get 3 minutes with the fidget toy. And then eventually would slowly start to increase the time until they became comfortable enough to be able to sit through class or do any of their work. We had some students who had one-on-one because they couldn't handle some of the sensory stuff that was going around. We also had students who had visual perception, and from there we would make things like flashcards. We would do memory games. We even created our own memory games for them so they could learn what the other students were learning. We would have to highlight lines. We had alphabet strips, and then another student, we actually had to move his desk to kind of like a remote area so he couldn't be distracted, and he also had a one-on-one for that, so he wasn't missing out on what was going on during teaching. And that's usually the type of things that we saw with our students. One student in particular, he had Angelman's, and so he had a lot more of sensory issues and visual perception. So he would have to have an aide walk with him down the hallways if he was changing classrooms, and they'd have to hold his hand because he could not physically walk by himself. And so the aide would actually help him and tell him if a step was coming up or if he had to lift his legs up. We also had to help him when it came to personal needs such as going to the bathroom, things like that, because he didn't physically like the feeling of going to the bathroom. So we would have to help him go to the bathroom, or we would have to do things like catheterizing for the students. For him also, clothes was a huge deal. In order for him to wear clothes, his father would have to wear them, and then he'd have to wear them 3 times, and they'd have to be washed 3 times because he didn't like the feeling of brand new clothes. He's always allowed to wear sweatpants and jogging pants, even for things like graduation. When he graduated, he was allowed to wear sweatpants because he didn't like the feeling of jeans or casual clothing. And gym shoes was the only thing that he was allowed to wear most of the time because that was the only thing he felt comfortable in. And those are the types of things that we usually saw with most of our students.
Thunder.